Fox News Alert Live Look now in Brooklyn, New York. You can see a lot of demonstrators out there commemorating Juneteenth. They're walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, chanting Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. This day, 155 years after the last slaves were freed in America. Gaining more attention, of course, than ever in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests that have been sweeping the nation, along with heightened awareness and massive rallies all across America. Companies across the U.S. are now honoring Juneteenth as an annual holiday. Here now with more insight is Jack Brewer. He's CEO and executive producer of the Brewer Group, a former NFL player for the Minnesota Vikings. Jack, welcome and happy Juneteenth.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
I really appreciate it. As I read your story, you grew up in Texas. This has deep meaning for you. Tell us about your personal experience.
I got to tell you, man, this is a joyous day. All my life we celebrated Juneteenth. And, usually when I even talk to African Americans across the country, a lot of people don't even understand or didn't before now understand the significance of this day. My great grandfather was a sharecropper. He was the first black man actually to come into my town. Grapevine, Texas, sharecropping. And so this day always reminds me of that. It reminds me of my history. And so, for a long time, I've always hoped and dreamed that this would actually be a national holiday. And so I'm pushing for that. And it's just, it's a time that all Americans can reflect, right? Not just reflect on the horrible institution of slavery,
yes,
but reflect on how far we've come. I mean, this is truly a day we should all be celebrating. I just remember those barbecues at home in Texas, and it really was a meaningful day. And so I'm just excited to see that the nation is finally getting around this holiday.
Well, and the president said something similar in his statement today about the horrors of slavery, but how far we have come. I know you're friends with the president. You just mentioned that you'd like to see Juneteenth be a federal holiday. What's your case to the president? Why do you think this may help bring the country together?
We need it. We need it right now. No more talking about it. This president has done so many amazing things for the African American community with his policies, whether it's criminal justice reform, going against what everyone else did in the past. The same thing you just saw him do with police reform, the first president to actually use his executive powers to come in and reform the police departments. Now it's time to actually make this a national holiday. I remember growing up when MLK Day finally schools all across the nation start being let out. It's time to do that same thing now. This holiday is meaningful for all Americans. We all know the horrible, horrific stories about slavery, but this is a time to rejoice. It's a time to show the world where America stands, how America stands up against racism, against slavery, against oppression, and really shows us where we're going for the future. And that's celebrating the freedoms of all Americans, all colors, all shapes, sizes, and colors.
So you're in Tulsa already. You're going to be at the president's rally tomorrow night. And as you know, there are some African Americans who are having protests tonight. I heard Al Sharpton was going to be giving a speech. They don't want the president in Tulsa. They're upset that he chose Tulsa as the location of this rally, as you know, because of that racial massacre in 1921. What's your pushback to other African Americans who are saying president shouldn't do this? And what do you think the president should say tomorrow night, maybe more important than that, to try to bring people together?
This is a time for reconciliation. We shouldn't be avoiding the things of our past. We should be talking about them and actually healing from them. This is a time to be joining hands as Christians, as believers, as a nation, and giving this to God. We're men. All men make mistakes. All men do bad things, and we are all sinners. But this is not a time to have more divisiveness. And so having protests against people and standing up against man, that's not what this is about. It's not about identity. It's not about race. It's actually bringing us all together. 99.9% of our DNA is all the same anyway. And our Bible teaches us that. And Jesus gave us direction in John 15:12. And he said that we must love each other like he loves us. And I think as a nation, that's what we need to focus on right now. Not trying to win political points. You cannot politicize oppression. It's just not right. Choose a different subject other than race and evilness and divisiveness. Choose other subjects to politicize.
You've talked about on this subject putting together a council on reconciliation in terms of race. There are others like Bob Johnson, who started BET, the first black billionaire who wants to see reparations in the trillions of dollars. What do you think about all that?
You know what? I always say reparations through education. We need to reform our education system so it doesn't leave these poor black kids out to dry. You know, 71% of our kids that drop out of high school are fatherless. We need to go in and systematically change our institutions that are pushing fathers out of the home. We can go in and take care of these deeply rooted racial disparities if we're willing to do it and put our politics aside. You know, we can't keep standing up for unions. We got to stand up for people. We can't keep standing and talking about standing up against oppression, but voting for policies that actually continue the systematic oppression that we claim to be against. So, you know, we can't fight against those that agree with us, and we have to keep our eye on the prize, and that is going in and bringing God back into our country, bringing bringing faith back into our institutions, not pushing them out. That's what's happening to the core of our kids. Our kids are losing the fear of God, and we're watching it on our TV screens right before our eyes. And the way we get back to that is getting the faith groups, like we're doing with this Council for Racial Reconciliation. We're bringing faith groups together because the folks of faith have to fix ourselves first. We have to come together as one people and not be divided and show this nation that we are one nation under God.
Jack Brewer, you're going to be there at the rally. You've got a very strong, positive message about bringing people together. It's a great way to end another very long week in America. We wish you well, and we wish you a happy Juneteenth, as I mentioned. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Thanks so much, Ed. God bless you, man. God bless this country.
All right, I agree.